Good morning, everybody. My name is Amanda and welcome back to City Sewers. Today is kind of a cold day. It's overcast, but I mean, cold here is certainly not cold as most of the world knows it. I think that the high today is only like 60. I don't think that's right. But today is going to be overcast and kind of bleary dreary. But that doesn't mean that I get to not do things that have to be done. Today's project is actually to muck out the chicken coop because it is getting a little gross. Things are just piling up in there, and by things I mean poop. So I'm going to muck out all the pine shavings that are in there, put down fresh shavings, and I don't know that I'm going to bother putting down straw. The chickens are really not struggling at all with the cold, and I would much rather save the straw for doing in the goat pen here whenever I can finish getting to that. But the chickens are in their coop on a regular basis, so I felt that that had a higher priority over the goat pen since the goats spend zero time in there voluntarily at this time of year. So this is our project for the day. Daenerys, you have a lot to say about this, don't you? Yeah? This is Daenerys, the boss hen. And whenever I'm out here, she has so much to say. Oh my. Alright, well, let's get to work then, shall we? So here you can see kind of how nasty it is. You can tell where the birds roost because it's all poopy. But we're going to get all that cleaned out today. And I'm also going to go ahead and take this fan out. This fan was in here during the hottest part of the summer because the birds were struggling a little bit with the heat. So I brought out a fan to keep them cool, and it just never really came out. But you know what? It can come in and probably get cleaned up a little. It's really gross. The nest boxes are also going to need to be cleaned up a little. So it's a full project today, as Daenerys is telling us. They're all anticipating their nice clean coop so they can come in and destroy it. Alright, now I've got my green bin here and my shovel. Put on my work gloves. Let's get digging. Now the reason that I do not compost my chicken manure is because I don't have anywhere to put it and it would take too long to break down. Chicken manure is very high in nitrogen. It's called nitrogen hot. And you can't just put it straight into your garden because you'll burn your plants, literally, chemically. And so I just don't really have a place that I can let it break down enough to be usable in the garden. So we just decided that it would be better for us to just dispose of it, and we amend our garden with other methods. Okay, so now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of poop nerding, I guess. So we all know that chickens don't really pee, they poop. That is true of all birds and even reptiles. Now, they still have kidneys, they still produce urates, right? So how is that being excreted? So what it is that the streaks of white that you will see in both chicken and reptile manure, that is actually their urates. So what we will excrete in liquid form as urine, they actually excrete in a solid form called urates. It's still going to smell like ammonia. It's basically the same thing. It's just it's in a solid form instead of a liquid. So just thought that I'd share that little tidbit with you, that when chickens poop, they're peeing too. I mean, I'm sure that that's really gross, but hey, it's a nerd fact. Okay, one emptied out chicken coop. Does not have to be 100% perfect, just has to be cleaned out. It already smells better in here. But we're going to get some fresh pine shavings down. But while I've got my shovel and green bin out, I'm going to go clean up that patio. So goats, if you would believe it, haha, are not meat eaters. They are not garbage disposals. They don't eat everything. They, in fact, are very picky eaters, and when it comes to alfalfa hay, they want to eat the leaves only and leave all the stems and sticks. So when they eat hay, it's everywhere. They've been camping out over here because they don't want to be in their pen in the winter, which is fine because you know what? I can keep a closer eye on them while they're pregnant and all that during the winter anyway. But they make a big mess when they pull their hay out of the hay bag here, which they twisted. Ooh, it needs to be refilled. When they pull it out, a bunch of the sticks and stuff will fall out, sometimes that still have leaves on them. So you do actually waste quite a bit of hay when you have goats, especially if you're feeding from a hay feeder bag like this. But we are currently in the works of trying to work out a design that's going to be a little bit more efficient, that might drop the sticks and leaves into a feed trough that they have not pooped on, because if it touches the ground where they have pooped or peed, they are not going to touch it again. So, I mean, that's a good thing in one aspect. You don't want goats eating yucky, nasty food. However, you do want them to eat as much of the food that you're paying for as possible. So, we're going to try and fashion some sort of feeder over here that will catch the feed as they drop it. But right now it's time to clean this up because this is after only a few days. This is, I think, 4 days worth of not shoveling, so it's time. Every time I'm having to put the camera down, I am now having to put it on the other side of a fence from the goats at this point, because a few weeks ago we were filming, or about to film, and I had not set up the tripod all the way wide enough, and I stepped away from the camera for just a minute, and Betsy knocked over the camera and broke the lens on the camera, which is actually a very expensive replacement part. So to be safe while I'm doing all this manual work, stop it, the goat's trying to eat my gloves out of my pocket. But they're very curious about the tripod, and they try to get into it and they knock it over, and things, very terrible things happen to cameras when goats knock them over. So it's just on the other side of the fence while I'm busy not paying attention. I'm extra paranoid right now just because it happened. I'm sure that I'll get more relaxed as things don't happen, but right now I'm just paranoid. But let's get this patio cleaned up. Alright, success. It's all cleaned off. And it's funny, the one time I'm ready to go with a comment is the one time they don't pee or poop on it as I'm cleaning. I swear, goats, or at least my goats, they will wait for a clean surface to poop or pee on. Like, alright, it's all clean, and they will immediately poop. Anyway, but it's clean now, so now we can get the pine shavings set up in the chicken coop, and then we can be done with all these projects. Of course, there's fresh poops in here. They just gotta wait. Animals just gotta have a clean surface to poop on. Okay, so now I've got the nest boxes all filled up. I did put quite a few, or quite a bit of pine shavings in here because chickens are chickens and they'll brush a lot of it out doing their thing. I did move the placement of the second nest over here to the other side because they do seem to prefer the nest that's over here. And the other one honestly was under a roost, so they kept pooping on it. So there's enough space to have them side by side here. I'm going to do that. One lid is blocking the chicken door right now because I wanted them out of the way. But we'll get the lids on these, we'll finish getting the floor covered, and then we'll let them in. I think it'll do. Now it is winter, so egg production is definitely not at its peak, but we got 3 eggs today. Some gorgeous blue, well, a blue one, a green one, and a brown one. But they have been laying fairly consistently. We get generally 2 to 3 eggs every day, which is more than even people with much larger flocks. Goodness, you're noisy. Which is much more than people with much larger flocks in other parts of the world are getting right now. So I am thankful to be getting even these 3 eggs, 2 eggs every day that we're getting. So girls are doing good. I have noticed that our green egg layer here, this comes from our whiting true green named Sage. She has actually not stopped laying all winter. Like, her eggs are distinctive because she's the only one who lays this color egg. And she has not stopped. She's been laying fairly consistently throughout the entire winter. As well as, I think this is coming from our black Australorp because she's been laying eggs that have a light band on them. And I mean, they're dirty. They're dirtier in the winter because their feet are generally wet, so they're tracking in mud. But I think that our black Australorp is also laying. I'm sure that there are other brown egg layers that have been occasionally laying here and there because they're not always speckled. But that's been happening. And then I have busted our crested cream leg bar Eliza once in the nest with a brand new, fresh, like still damp egg. This may still be her, but it also may be one of our 2 Americanas. But she has started laying because she didn't lay at all for a while. So she's back into production. We'll see if she's the only one or not. I mean, sometimes you just can't tell when you have chickens that lay similar colored eggs. But it is cool to be able to identify exactly who's laying which eggs and when, which is cool. But anyway, chicken coop is now fresh and clean, and they're going to be probably exploring it for the rest of the day, looking for anything in all the dust. Hi, Eliza. Flock is doing great. It's a bummer that we lost Chuckles, but you know, she was old, and I mean, she was healthy all the way up until her passing, and the flock is totally healthy. They're doing great. It's a good opportunity to check the health of your flock when you are getting your hands physically on them, because just looking at them with their feathers all poofed up, you can't tell if they're losing weight. So if you can get your hands on even a few members of the flock, it can kind of give you a general picture. Granted, not every member of the flock can necessarily be healthy, but you can get a general feel for the health of your flock by getting your hands on at least a couple of your birds and feeling their body condition. They have a very prominent bone across the breast, or not across it, but down the breast, called their keel bone. And in chickens, it is a fairly obvious bone there. You don't see it in the grocery store birds because they've actually been bred to have abnormally large breasts, so that you don't actually feel that keel bone. But in a healthy, not meat production or dual purpose bird even, you're going to feel that distinctive keel bone, but you should feel muscle around it. And they all feel really good. They've got good body condition, they've got good muscle mass, and so I'm really pleased with their overall health this winter. It feels like this has just been generally a milder winter, which means that it's easier on them. You ever wonder what they're saying? And are they just going around in there talking about the fluffiness of the bedding? And I don't know. Oh, well, I like this brand. They're very chatty. Thank you for joining me today on my little chore day here, getting some stuff done with the animals, getting their areas cleaned up. Miss Betsy here is doing great with her pregnancy. I've been able to feel babies moving around in her recently. I think she has at least 2, because I did feel 2 distinct movements on 2 sides of her, and I'm pretty sure that a singleton would not be yet big enough to reach all the way across her middle. So I'm pretty sure she's got at least 2, which is a relief, because a singleton can generally tend to be larger. But she's doing good. She's definitely a love hog. Oh, sweetie. But she's eating well, and in the interest of avoiding another Rosie situation like we had last year, we're not entirely sure what caused it, but if she had some sort of a deficiency or something, I have been giving her extra boosts of, I have some mineral cookies that I got from Bite Me, which they have not endorsed this at all, but I do get several of their products to feed to my goats. So she's been getting the mineral cookies as well as a general pregnancy support cookie, which I've been feeding to both of them actually, because Miss Jane was supposed to come into heat this past weekend, and she's officially late, so she might be pregnant. She might not be though, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed for about another week really, because actually last year, what are you doing? That's my zipper. Give me that. Thank you. Last year, Betsy actually reabsorbed her first pregnancy last year, so she came back into heat after 4 weeks instead of 3 weeks, so it got complicated. But Jane's been such a headache this year to get bred that I'm just kind of holding my breath until we get at least past a month from her last breeding. As always, this is your urban nerd with a goat herd, telling you that you can grow where you're planted. Hi, sweetie. Yeah. Oh, you sweet girl. Yeah.